All right. Good morning again. Thank you all for joining us. This is our sprint demo for sprint one of our third work cycle for the year. So this sprint started on June 17th and is wrapping up today. And what I thought would be helpful is to recap at the beginning what the goals for the work cycle are, because we're really trying to set up our work cycles and our sprints to really be focused on a limited set of goals and then pulling in individual sprint goals into support of that. Since this is the first sprint of the work cycle, thought it would be good to just recap those, and then each of the individual teams giving updates can really dig into what they accomplished in support of those larger goals during this past 3 weeks. So the first really big goal that we had for this work cycle is what we're calling, what's the next version of a connected system? And by connected system, we mean connecting Comet to Discovery. So that's the Daylight microcomponents and our ADRL Lite prototype. It also means connecting in LARC for authorities, AAAF for image server, and including the deployment patterns that we want to be using for the new Discovery system. Our second major goal for this work cycle is to complete the few remaining Comet features that have been derived from the shared remaining MVP features lists. These are just not really huge chunks of work, but just really small concentrated efforts to make sure that all of the features that each campus needs to put Comet into production are ready for users at both campuses. The third major goal of this work cycle is to finish our environment design efforts. That really means putting the environments in place that we need in the development team to really help us validate the work that we're doing and QA all of the new work that we're doing, but also putting the new sandbox and production infrastructure in place at each campus to help support our end users really starting to use these systems in a production environment. And then the fourth major goal for this work cycle is reducing our tech debt. And this is really a couple of things. The first, ensuring that all of our essential services are being managed in CI. And this is really intended to help support those efforts related to that connected system. So again, really this emphasis throughout the whole work cycle at really getting the infrastructure in place that we need, both to really validate all of the development work we're doing, but also preparing the systems for staff at multiple campuses to start using them in a production setting. In this first sprint, I do want to acknowledge there was a lot of change that was going on at both campuses. And so I want to acknowledge that the team did such a fantastic job in this sprint despite of those changes. And so that did have a bit of an impact on our work. But I think you'll hear from each of the teams that we really were able to start putting those foundations in place for a successful work cycle. So I think I am turning it over first to Elisa and David to give us some updates on the connected system front.
Yeah, hello. My name's Elisa Pierce. I am with UCSB. I'm going to give an update for Daylight. So Daylight work was primarily behind the scenes. It was the plumbing. We were able to rebuild the home page, the search results page, and the objects page, all that you've seen in our last stakeholder demo, but inside of ADRL Lite. So that included some cleanup too of the result list and the results simple pager components. So that's work that absolutely is necessary to get this ADR Lite MVP up and running. So also, work was done on our object viewer component. We were exploring the universal viewer as a IIIF solution. It is also worth noting that we discussed the future of our component build process. This is a strategy that begins to outline our collaboration between design and development. And so this is framing mental models and our delivery expectations. So not anything to show that's any different than you've seen, but quite a lot was going on. And that's what we have.
Yeah, and related to that, so as far as the ADRL Lite APIs and backend, that was also kind of a plumbing focus this sprint. We're still not quite at the point of having a deployed ADRL Lite QA environment, but we're hoping to get there this sprint that starts tomorrow. But in this past sprint, we did make a fair bit of progress toward serving those the IIIF manifests that the image viewer needs. And hoping to finish that up this next sprint. And this is where the the connected system uh, really has to become real because it doesn't do any good to have a discovery system that can show you objects metadata for objects unless those objects actually exist somewhere that we can pull down the images and show you the thumbnails and let you zoom around and all those fun things. So that will some of the how much progress we can demo on that for this next sprint will depend a little bit on how far we get in terms of finishing up our environment work and getting demo data populated in those systems. But it'll be a great demonstration of all the pieces talking to each other.
Thanks, David and Lisa. Um, David, did you have other things that you had wanted to update about Comet feature work?
Yeah, just to on Comet, it's a similar theme to what we've had for the last couple sprints. Like Christy said, we're filling in a relatively small number of remaining features. We're also trying to do some requirements analysis on some things that were not in the UC Santa Barbara kind of minimum viable product or what we need to launch, but will be for San Diego. And just knocking off a lot of small bugs and quality of life issues that we've identified um, as we go through Comet and as more people test it.
Thanks, David. And I think now we're going to hear from Alex and Matt to update us on what they've been really busy doing on our environment design efforts.
Do you want to go first, Alex?
Why don't you go first?
Okay. I can speak to the sandbox environment work that we've been doing for on the UCSD side. So we now, as of the end of this sprint, do have sandbox deployments up for, I believe, all the Surfliner applications except for Starlight. And the hope going forward, which Michael Stewart and I have been talking about, is starting to do some QA type testing on that environment just to make sure everything is connected and configured the way that it needs to be, because there are a lot of apps and a lot of moving parts. But I think it is a pretty good milestone for us getting that set of environments up. And once we're past that sort of initial QA point, I think there's going to be some more formal testing that'll happen. And I will probably also start to pivot over towards the getting the preview environments stood up for UCSD. And I think that's it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty much in the same boat. We have our new set of environments, and I think they're all set up. Not sure if we got a Starlight Sandbox up yet, but along with San Diego, everything else, so we can start actually letting librarians and other stakeholders do the appropriate testing. We're still working on getting like seed data set up so that users don't have to manually ingest things just to check that objects are displaying correctly. But that should be done pretty quickly. I'm not sure what else would be useful because we don't have, I mean, it's not really a demoable thing because it's just new instances, mostly empty, ready for testing. So Chrissy, I don't know if you want to bring up the diagram over, giving an overview of the how these instances relate to one another, because previously we had like review instances that were used to test code before it's merged, a staging instance, and then a production instance. Now we still have the review instance, but we also have QA, which is replacing staging more or less. It runs code as soon as it's merged. So once something is reviewed and approved by developers and merged into the main branch of our repository, it's immediately deployed to QA. And then that can be used for demoing, for obviously quality assurance, for testing. And then once we've confirmed that the code running on QA is good, stable, what we want, there's a manual process to deploy it to production. Previously, the production was running the bleeding edge as well. But this way, it gives us a little bit of a buffer to catch bugs that slip through review. And so there's a manual step required to actually get that code into production. And that manual button, once pushed, deploys to production and to Sandbox, which is a new kind of environment. The idea there is that it runs exactly the same as production, but it's a sandbox for training users, for testing ingests prior to ingesting into production, and for trying to basically have something that's identical to production but can be toyed around with. Does that seem like a good summary, Chris, or is there anything you want to add?
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Alex. The only other thing that I might add just in terms of accomplishments during the sprint related to the environments, and also to just clarify that as you might have gathered from both Matt and Alex's updates, UCSB and UCSD are running separate sandboxes and then obviously separate productions, but this new QA environment, which is really to help support the work of the development team, is a shared environment that is running in UCSB's AWS account. And so there was a lot of work done, again, more of this kind of plumbing type stuff, where we needed to give the UCSD ops folks and DevOps folks access to our account, which is surprisingly complicated since it requires establishing a UCSB net ID for those staff members. And so that was a several-week process, but now everyone has net IDs and is able to help support that environment on the back end. Yeah, but I think unless there's questions from anyone about the environments or any of the updates, I know that there were some, and I think we touched on these in the updates, But do we want to call out anything in more detail related to our tech debt goal for the work cycle?
The only other piece of that is that we're continuing to take work that we've done in Comet and try to move that upstream into Hyrax for the benefit of the community there. Which it's been fruitful because, excuse me, going back and forth with them about some of our proposed changes has identified like use cases we didn't consider or issues we didn't immediately see in our own code. So the benefits of working with that community are going both ways. That's how it should be.
All right. Well, I think that is it in terms of our updates, unless, Michael, I see that you were able to, Michael Stewart, that you were able to join us. I don't know if there's anything else that we didn't touch on that you wanted to highlight.
Nope, I think that's good, Chrissy. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We do have time for questions if folks want, but I'll go ahead and ask Gabriella to turn off the recording. So thanks again.